I still have the passion for real estate, for the passive income. I love the tax strategy from owning real estate, but I didn't realize owning that many single family homes was not going to give me the financial freedom that I was looking for.
Are you ready to transform your life? This is a no-nonsense show helping immigrants like you create generational wealth, even while working full-time. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Saket Jain.
Welcome, everyone, to the show. Today's guest is a very good friend of mine, Willie Wahba. Willie is from California. He is a syndicator as well and have tons of deals. He's actually an interesting guest that I thought will add a lot of value to me and my listeners because he is still employed, full-time or part-time. We'll ask Willie that question and he'll give us a little bit more insight into that. But he's also finding his own deal, investing passively. So it'll be interesting to see what his stories are, what his approach is. Willie, welcome, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for taking the time. It's been a while since we've seen each other, but always good to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Are you in California today or you're talking to us from somewhere else?
I'm in San Diego, California.
Oh my God, one of the best places to be. I don't think you're ever moving out of there, are you?
Yeah, it's hard to justify that, actually.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So Willie, I know you are the man who does not need much introductions in the circles you run. You're one of the amazing guys that I've met before. But for our listeners who may not know you, could you give us a quick introduction and how you got into what you do?
Sure. So my name is Willie Wahba. I actually migrated from Egypt when I was 20 years old to finish or go to school, study engineering in the United States. And I went to New Jersey Institute of Technology, got an engineering degree, and started working for a startup and kept going from one place to the other, working on space and aerospace industry right now. And I always had a passion for real estate. So I always try to do this on the side by investing in single family homes. And, over time, I managed to grow my portfolio to have 50 single family homes at one point. Was mostly, fix and flip, longer term, like rental hold. And eventually I got tired of it. I got distracted. I couldn't really do it anymore. So I started selling them all. And I said, I'm done with real estate. I cannot continue anymore. I think I just gonna focus on being in my job because it was gonna very hard to scale from just owning a 50 single family home in different states, actually.
Wow, Willie, that is amazing. I didn't realize you had 50 homes under your portfolios at some point. And I didn't even realize they were in different states.
You were.
You don't play small. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's take a step back. There's a lot of things we need to delve deeper in the statements that you've made. But let's first remind our listeners, I try to do that every single time we have an episode, which is the name of our show is Migrate to Wealth, right? The most important word, as you all know, is not wealth. It's migrate, because migrate is our transformation mindset, right? That we're intentionally creating a change in our life. So Willie, with that theme and the background that you just shared with us, help us understand your mindset of shifting from your W-2 job to trying to build a passive income stream, which ended up being inactive, I realized, because fix and flip is not necessarily passive. It's a lot of work. It's essentially having a job on top of another job. So help us understand, what mindset were you in at that point when you decided that you need to do something different to create multiple sources of income?
Yeah, so I have to give a little bit of my background. When I came here to go to school, I was a very poor student. I made my way through school by working full-time and going to school full-time. And I worked all night and I actually went to school in the morning. So I used to sleep in traffic lights and people would wake me up because that's probably I had the bribe of sleep. I couldn't get enough sleep for the whole time I was going to college. So it was a tough time. And in my idea, working I work in a restaurant, coffee shop. I did it all to be able to send myself through school. And, at this point I was like a foreign student. So I was being out of state, which is my tuition was in some cases twice and 4 times as much as someone resident in the state. And I didn't have any support from my family. So to me, it looked like, okay, once I get my degree, once I have my job, once I have my engineering job, well, I made it, right?
Yeah.
I'm done. Like I'm well off. I get to drive this brand new car. I get to buy this brand new
Right.
house. And, I'm just all set for life. And to find out that that was not any different, I was still trapped in a rat race. And by the time that I got my job and I started making better money, but my expenses had increased, and I wasn't better off at the end of the month by any means. I still was hard to make things meet, and was expanding. My lifestyle was impossible. Then it hit me the most when I had my first kid, right? So I had my first daughter, and now my wife and I were living in a small town homes, and we were actually house hacking at this point. We were having a roommate to be able to afford to get by.
Right.
I'm an engineer. My wife was going to school full time. And then now we needed the townhouse by ourselves, but we realized because my wife was still going to school that we have to move to be closer to my mother-in-law to get some kids help.
Right.
And we were living in Denver back then, and God, to be able to afford the neighborhood and the bigger house, that means that we needed to have a bigger paycheck. And I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do to expand my paycheck? So I start thinking outside the box, trying to figure out different things.
Mhm.
But I can tell you that by the time we moved in, I realized we bought the house. We said maybe we need to keep that single family homes instead of selling it. We can keep it, rent it out, and from $400 or $500 extra, the difference between how much we can rent it for and our mortgage at that
Mhm.
time, we can make a little bit of a passive income. And we did this once, and I think the light bulb comes in. And I think if I go
Yeah.
buy enough single family homes and do this, maybe by acquiring those little, rental portfolio, I can have extra income to be able to expand my lifestyle. And that's how the whole thing started. But that's just due to the fact you have a family that's expanding, you're having kids. Now your kids, you need to be in a certain neighborhood, in a certain school. And that's what really forced us to kind of try to figure out how can we make extra income to supplement our lifestyle.
I love that story, Willie. Your story is so similar to a lot of immigrant story, right? All of us, including me, we left a country or a place or family behind to move to a new country, to a new place in search for a better opportunity. And then at some point in our lives, it hit us that is it really a better opportunity? Because what you're doing at that point may be better than what you had thought, but it's not letting you live the life that you were planning to be live, right? And that's an
Absolutely.
interesting and thank you for sharing that. I know it was probably hard to go back to those times, and I could just see in your eyes you're emotionally already there. Thank you for being open to sharing that story. So in that story, if we stay with that story for a few more minutes, right? So you took a very different approach than most people would take, right? You took an approach of, I have an expanding family instead of reducing my expenses, because there's only two, when you're spending money and earning money, there's only two pieces of it. Either you can make more or you can spend less. There's only two approaches. There's really nothing else left, right? And you were already down to all the expenses that you can reduce, I believe. I'm sure you have taken more cuts in other things, but at that point, you would ask the question, why am I working so hard? But you took an interesting approach of, let me expand my income instead of finding how to reduce my expenses. That's a very interesting approach. How were you thinking about that?
I'll be honest, there was nothing to cut, and my wife was still going to school. But even while we were doing this, I'm not gonna lie, I actually went and I was doing banquet on the side as I was an engineering in the morning, and I was working on a weekend and at night, like as a part-time doing banquet job in a five-star hotels. Like I needed all the money I can get at this point
Right.
to survive. So while I was a single income, my wife was going full-time to school, and I had a kid. And at this point, between my rental, which wasn't bringing enough, we still didn't have enough to get by, and I had to go take a banquet job because at that time I was working for a startup, and that was during the startup bust. So the
Oh,
promise was my salary was not that huge as I was getting a lot of my compensation in the stock options.
Correct.
And my stock kept going lower until we were one of those startups where my stock actually got kicked out of the Nasdaq eventually. So my stock option did not worth anything. So
I'm
I
sorry to hear
committed
that.
my life in this company for a few years, hoping that between the stock option and my stock, being able to exercise that one day, but that never ever happened to me. So I end up just leaving and changing job after that and working for a real company instead.
Yeah, no, I think Willie, again, thank you for reliving those moments with us. I can see myself in those stories, right? All of us can see in that story, because we've all had the high hopes and high dreams of doing something, and somehow, like for me, I got laid off. I wasn't planning to get laid off. You were not planning your stock to go be kicked out of the Nasdaq. Like I'm sure everyone else has an element, a trigger where they were not planning to, but life happened to them, right? Like in your case now, so now you are from that journey, you found real estate. Now, how did you grow from one single family, which happened to be not giving you a lot of money from there, $400 an extra month? That's without any expenses and all. That was just looking at the mortgage. But I'm pretty sure when you look at the net, it was not a lot of cash flow. So how did you plan from going from there to 50 homes?
Initially, it was accidental. So because of the changing of the job, like the startup went bust, and now I have to change jobs. So I went and I looked for a job, and my wife graduated, got a job. So we had to find another place where we can split the distance. We had to move. So now I moved from my first one. Now I actually moved from my second house, and we had a house that the second house we rented as well. So now we have a second house. Now, then later on, we actually found that we were still struggling with the kids. So we have to move back to another time. My mother-in-law moved, and we said, okay, maybe we'll move another time and figure out how to can be close by and get help with, because now we have two kids. So we moved one more time. So we end up owning 3 single-family homes plus the one we were living in. And at this point, we had 3 rental, and we were living, and both of my wife and I were working, live in the forest. And then eventually, we're presented with an opportunity to go out of state and get a job in California, which is the same job that I have right now.
At that time, you were still in Denver, correct? Before that job.
At that time, I was still in Denver. So I moved one last time, and I kept my 4 rentals. And then it was 2008, and that's when all the crash in the real estate happened. But I hold through this because at that point, my rental was covering the mortgage, and the prices were going down. But what happened is later on, 2013, the real estate had rebound. And I actually, during that time, I added few more real estate. I bought one in California, I bought one in Florida, and I bought during the crash, and I bought actually 2 in California, one in Marietta area and one in like San Diego area. So we had like 6 or 7 houses. So after that, after the real estate rebound, we listed our homes for sale, and we did a 1031 exchange, and we took all that money and we leveraged that money again to go out of state and buy cheaper rental, like within a smaller city, because we like 3x our money, like in some of those rentals. So we took that whole entire money and we split it among many houses, and we were leveraging and buying homes, putting the minimum we can, and buying from a wholesaler, fix and rehab and refinance. So in some cases, by doing that really quickly, we were able to get most of our money back. So we can buy the house, fix it and flip it, and refinance it for how much we paid for, and basically took all of our money back to rinse or repeat, you know what I mean? And that's how we start expanding the portfolio.
Oh my God, Willie, you just don't give up. That's awesome.
Yeah. So taking that money and then start like doing the fix and rehab and repeat, and take all the money back after your finance, and keep expanding the portfolio to grow it up.
That's amazing. So I'll take a quick pause on there, because there's few terms that you use. Let me just explain to the listeners to make sure that we have a no investor left behind philosophy. So 1031 is essentially, and we'll do a complete video on that as well. I'll bring another tax expert for that, but it's essentially a strategy to defer your taxes. When you sell a real estate, especially an investment property, you could buy another property to defer your taxes. So that's a 1031, much deeper topic, but at a high level, that's what it is. And fix and flip. Not everyone may be familiar with that term. That essentially means you buy a property, you buy a single family, apartment, or whatever, and you, as the term sounds, you fix it, which essentially means you upgrade it, you add more value to it, and then you flip it to another investor or retail buyer or whoever, right? So the plan is to hold it for a very short time, and you buy it for, let's say, 100K, you put in 100K worth of improvement, you sell it for 400 or 500K. That's the goal. Numbers are really only as an example. The number is different, the profit margin is different. But that's exactly what Willie was talking about when he said that he took his money from his existing properties, sold it, 1031 into some of the other properties that he was able to fix flip as well. And that's how he was able to multiply his money faster. So really that comes with multiplication of your money. What about the cash flow, right? Fix and flip is a short-term hold. You put in 100K, you make it 50K, 100K, 200K on top of it. But what about your real challenge of having the cash flow?
Yeah, when I say the fix and flip, I meant by the flip word is it's called BRRRR strategy. I didn't want to use that BRRRR, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance. But basically, what I meant by flipping is I was flipping it back to refinance it. So I was buying them from wholesaler, distressed seller, and I would fix a house and make it rent ready and go rent it out and go to the bank and say, now this house worth a lot more than what I paid
Got it.
for. I need you to refinance it. So in most of the cases, I would say buy the house for $80,000. I would pay $20,000 to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I go to the bank and I say, then I rent it for like say $1,000 a month, and I go to the bank and the bank would get it appraised at $125,000, for
Got it.
example. So in this case, he can loan me up to 70% or 75% or 80% of what I paid. But in most of the cases, I was restricted because it was a short period of time to take 100% of what I invested back, but I cannot take any more penny out of it. So if I had invested totally between the rehab and the initial purchase was like $100,000, $100,000, that's all I can get back.
Got it.
But that's fine because at this point, I own a house that generates a little bit of income, like cash flow, but in reality, I have no capital in
your
this
cost
house.
basis is zero, right?
Zero,
At
basically.
that point, once you refinance it, it's pretty much zero.
It's very much zero. So
it's an amazing strategy, really, right? So I love that strategy. And that's what you use to grow your portfolio to 50. But let's talk about the flip side of that strategy, right? Because especially with you having a full-time job and owning these properties, but in San Diego, I don't think the property values are at a point in San Diego where you could do this model. So you had to leave San Diego and find somewhere else, right?
That's why I did most of my investment out of state. They were mostly in Dallas, Texas, and they were in Indianapolis and Kansas City, and in some cases Florida. And as you can see, like having a bigger portfolio, and I was trying to manage this over the phone, like trusting contractor, but people were cutting corners all the time. And honestly, what I learned afterwards, that the quality of the rehab wasn't as good as I anticipated, because I tried to do this over a distance, and that did not work very well. And you trusting property management with your own profile.
Right. Hey, Willie. Somehow your voice disappeared.
Sorry, I hit the mute button. I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me ask you the question again. Let's repeat that.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
So why don't you just repeat your answer? The editor will edit it.
So basically, as I said, I was trying to maximize. I found out that by doing a lot of out-of-state investment, that the rehab quality wasn't as I initially anticipated. The contract was trying to cut corners. Property management is the profit center. They were after their own best interest by maximizing your expenses and to make more profit. And in some cases, there was a little bit of tricky businesses, which is some repairs or invoices that not always that invoices that was performed in your property and
Right.
was hard to track and keep track of it. So if you imagine if you spend all your night reading different reports from different property management and you're trying to justify every little expenses, even though I said that my bases were zero in some of their homes, I found out that after actually my first tenant moved out or they moved in, I found out that I was getting hit with a lot of expenses.
Right.
ACs going out, all of a sudden like plumbing issues, leaks, in a lot of cases when you rely on the property management, the cost is not really contained. And for whatever reason, it kept always happening to me on a Saturday and Sunday where I have to pay an arm and leg to get somebody to fix this
Of
plumbing
course.
and
Right.
AC in the middle of the summer in Texas. So it was always expensive repairs. So here I am thinking I'm making cash flow, but I found out that my cash flow would get wiped out in one AC call or one plumbing
Right.
call, plus all the headache and how I was trying to make sure that I stay profitable. But later on, the dip start tanking, and I start losing money as the tenant moves out, and some of those tenants were not quality tenant either.
Mm-hmm.
So they either damage the house or ruin the carpets, and by the time they do this, I found that I have to pay more money than my cash flow to refix the place, make ready, and put another tenant in. So you do this twice or three times, and you figure
Everything
out,
is
oh my
wiped
God,
out.
I'm losing
Yeah.
money here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What am I doing wrong?
Correct. Correct. So let's go to the next question, which is very logical. I think you teed it up for me very well. So what were you doing wrong? How did you fix it?
So I sold all the houses. I started selling them. I said, I'm
That's
done with the
amazing.
game.
Yeah.
I said initially, and I was looking for better ways I still have the passion for real estate, for the passive income. I love the tax strategy from owning real estate,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't realize owning that many single family homes was not going to give me the financial freedom that I was
Right.
looking for. So I start now that my tenant moves out, I fix the place, I sold it, and I'm done. I'm not doing anything. And I stopped doing I was like, this point, I'm going to pay my fair of taxes,
Yeah.
and I'm good. But in the meantime, I was spending a lot of time on a website called Bigger Pockets
Mm-hmm.
trying to read and educate myself for better or alternative methods. And I'll be honest, when I had that much money after I sold my single family homes, I was looking for a multifamily investment to break
Sure.
in.
And
And
where,
I think
let me quickly pause there, really. What made you think about multifamily? Help us with that process.
the whole idea, after you figure out you are scattered to own 50 houses, you scatter all over the place, and it's just so hard. So my whole simple idea is like, how can I take this 50 door, put it under one roof,
Right.
and have one property management that responsible for it, that can work for you. You can just go and visit that place as many times as you want. You
Correct.
keep your eyes on it, and basically just instead of just being scattered all over, it's just having everything under one roof, that you can have one focus on the whole entire portfolio in
Mm-hmm.
one place instead of being in different state at different time zone, etc.
Correct. 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 So I think I love that. So what role did Bigger Pocket play in that for you?
So I was trying to figure out how, because when I tried to do the multifamily, and I did read a lot of books on Bigger Bucket, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but I would go to the broker and I would bid on those deals, and I was underwriting them using some spreadsheet that I would find online, but I would never win any deals. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't win a single deal. I tried and I tried, and then I gave up, and I start really selling my portfolio. I said, I'm done with the real estate game. Then I found out about a mentorship or like some kind of conferences on real estate. And I went to that conference and I tried to get myself educated on multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a life changing for me, to be honest.
How did that change your life? It's kind of like, so at this point, let's just recap, right? So you sold your portfolio now. You were thinking you were done with the multifamily game because you were not winning any of the multifamily deals because no one would even, you may bid on a lot of stuff, but nothing was working out. So you were in that moment where it was probably the last straw on the camel's back that if it's not, I'm going to do one more thing. And if it doesn't work, I'm done. Right. So
Yeah,
help us understand that.
so I went there and I just listened to the guru speaking about multifamily and his mentorship and how he can help everybody. But be honest, I'm an engineer, so I'm always skeptical about
Of
listening to
course.
those people
Of
and try to
course.
sell me on a dream. That doesn't go well with me
Yeah.
at all. I mean, you cannot convince me, like you cannot draw this nice getting rich picture and I will fall
Yeah.
for it. It's not gonna be me. But what happened is during lunch, I was meeting all these people like me and you, and we were eating lunch together and hearing them speaking about how they started doing this and now they own one deal or two deal or they passively invested in multiple deals and how their cash on cash is like 10% and they don't have to do any work
Right.
and I'm like, man, that's what I
I
need.
want
That's
that.
how I
Yeah.
can deploy my money. I don't want to deal with tenant. I don't want to deal with my property management. I'm just gonna find those people that do those deals, and I'm just gonna invest passively with them, giving them, and I'm gonna get my 10% cash on cash. And I looked at how much money I have in the bank, and by doing
10% of
this, I
those.
just have
Perfect.
that
Yeah.
passive income, and it seems so good to be true. But you know what? What makes it true that you talk to a lot of people and you can tell it. I mean, you cannot just pay enough people to have them all under one roof and they would have all this different story
Of course.
that will
Of
back
course.
each other up. And to me, to have that in one place and being able to see that, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and participate. And first night I went, called my wife, I was like, I found this. I want to have access to this group. So I want to be part of it. And my sole goal is just to invest passively
Right.
and just really, really do this for a living or being able to grow our money this way. And I learned about the tax advantage. And at this point, my wife was a real estate professional. I still had my full time. So I know about all this taxes
Mhm.
advantage of being able to offset my own income by doing this, the paper losses or the cost segregation,
Right.
which is probably some term that we have to explain. But
Yeah.
but in reality, that's how I started doing it, passively invested in multifamily, and
Yeah.
that was a life changing.
No, it's, again, your path is like a perfect path for somebody who came from. I can do it all by myself, and he did it himself. About
Hmm.
beyond all the challenges and roadblocks that you faced, but then really quickly realized that there's another way of leveraging other people's time and their effort and everything else, and still probably exceed the returns you were getting from your own portfolio. Really, zero work. I think the only decision you had to make was which deal to invest in. Once that
That's
decision was made, you didn't have to make any single decision from that until your money was returned. Is that correct?
that's correct. I'll be honest, I was a victim of my own, eager to invest first because I was complaining because I had all this money and I was complaining that I was not getting enough deal
Mhm.
or access to enough deal because it takes time for people to know you and
Of
start
course.
adding
Right.
you to their database. And I was asking for recommendation because to me it's like I want to deploy that much money as fast as I can
Right.
because to me like it means that I start like earlier getting 8% or 10%
Correct.
cash and that will accelerate my net worth faster and can double or triple my net worth. So I was hunting syndicator honestly
Right.
for deals because I was not getting enough deals initially to deploy my money fast enough.
And let me help us understand, right? So I think everyone has gone through that journey of trying to build that ecosystem, the network. Now, there's two ways to look at this problem, Willie, right? And I'm sure you'll appreciate that because you've lived it. I know you have. As in, you reaching out to syndicators and just putting in any syndicator deal versus you building a short list of syndicators you like and then doing your due diligence and then trying to figure out where to deploy. How did
Yeah.
you go through that process?
So that was the pain. I was looking for any syndicator and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I actually end up maybe high side 80-20, 20% of my passive investment wasn't in the right places.
Okay.
And this was me not knowing. I thought any multifamily will do well. Then I started learning about, okay, different. Then I started developing my own criteria. It came after time because I started meeting people that was in the same situation that I am. And
Right.
we actually created very unique process. So we got together and a lot of us had invested in thousands and thousands of dollars. And we, at this point, we've been a year into this investment, passive investment. And we can see that some of our deal had exceeded the pro forma or
Sure.
exceeded the projection, initial projection. And some of it did not meet the initial projection. Some of it or met it, and some of were really struggling. And we said, okay, we're really gonna look for a process to map this and try to learn
Right.
why some of our investments succeeded and why some of our investment failed.
Right.
And we start really looking at everything from like median income where we invested, what was the crime rate, what was the location, what was the demographic mix, what the class of the asset we invested in. And we put those criteria and start looking at why. We start really coming out from the other side, learning why some of them succeeded, why some of them failed. So now we had it in black and white, our investment criteria moving forward. So now it's really, really easy for us or for me to see an investment and decide. And sometimes the syndicators themselves, I'm not going to deny this, because some of them are more sophisticated as the horse or the jockey. And some of the time, it's like who leading the investment can have an impact of the outcome, because sophistication and their experience definitely help the deal. So their track record is very important. But in a lot of cases, it was 80% really the location, the demographic, the median income, where the deal was at, and the location of the deal. So once we know that, we kind of like, wow, now we have our secret sauce of how can we be very successful in the future.
That's awesome, Willie. Again, tons of nuggets in there. I don't think we'll have the time to go deep in every single thing here, but I do want to talk. So now, fast forward from then to now, right? Now you still have a job. You have no single family portfolio. You've got rid of all your single family portfolio.
Zero.
You got into passive investments predominantly, but I know for a fact you now do your own syndications as well. So help us understand that journey. When you were trying to get your time back and not be active, you went all passive. What made you decide to move back into being active?
How much money I made in passive income.
There you go.
So when my deal starts selling, and I found out some of my deal was doubling in a couple of years, like I would do 100,000, and 2-3 years later, I got between the cash flow between selling the deal, and I'm like, my God, I'm just double my income. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm doubling my income as a passive, what about start really looking, because now I learned all about it, reading the report, learned all about the multifamily. Now I said, okay, I gotta go start buying my own deals,
right?
Because I'm greedy. I want to multiply my money faster.
Of course.
I have secret sauce for it now. So I start really buying my own deals with a couple of partners, and which is like a joint venture. And now I took most of my money and deployed into buying my own deal. So I invested passively and I still invest passively, by the way, in the right deals, because I cannot buy them all and I cannot find all the deals out there. So whenever someone that I know have a good deals, and I can spot them right now, I can see it, and I would just run to them. It's like, please take my money. I want to invest in this deal because I know this deal will do well. It's not something I bought, but at this price, at this location, at this asset class, they will do well. I can spot this, and I would invest passively. But I also do my own deals, like the joint venture, in a very small group, 2, 3, 4 people sometimes. And we can still use the same strategy as we did in the 1031, which is buy, rehab, fix, refinance. get most of our money back in some cases, to repeat and take that money and take it to the next deal. And we had done this multiple times, where we actually, now that we are using the 1031 exchange that we explained, and we're using the deferred taxes to be able to buy bigger and bigger and bigger deals. So our first deal was $4 million. We exited that deal and we bought a $14 million deal.
That's amazing.
Was actually with money left over to return, to double the return of our initial capital. So
Great.
we owned that $14 million for zero money.
Zero.
Right?
Yeah.
Zero money, absolutely. And we still have money left over from our 1031 exchange to invest it even in more deals. Then after I looked back, and this was a wake-up call, honestly, and from one deal, and that we did as a joint venture, and with just a little bit of money invested, wasn't that much money. And I looked at how much money I made from that deal, and I compared that amount. It was actually 5.6 times our initial capital. And that was
5.6x. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was in 21 months exactly.
Right.
And I looked at this, and I looked at the amount of money I made. And I looked at my 401k after working 20 to 23 years in my engineering jobs. And I compared the two numbers, and I was shocked.
Oh, I can
So
imagine.
here I am, 21 months later, I made a lot more money than I have in my 401k. What were I was thinking, right? Just into a job without doing or trying this on the side. And, at this point, I said, okay, I'll be so greedy not to share this with many friends and family. So one of my partner and myself, Kevin and myself, we started our own syndication because we both were in that deal and we both made that much money. And we both looked at it and say, God, we got to help as many people as we can. There is a lot of, you're doing a great job trying to reach as many people through your podcast, but not everybody going to listen to your podcast. And sometimes we know our friends and family, unless people are looking for something or some nuggets out there online, sometimes it's hard to know about the multifamily. So our goals is to, we're just going to start this and we're just going to tell our story. And we're going to try to share it with as many friends and families. And that was primarily why we started syndicating deals, to invite as many, like my mother-in-law, my friends, my people that we know that you want to come and invest along our side. And our sole goal is to really help them out, discover this great opportunity without any even second thought about anything else. I mean, we invest alongside. We're still putting our money in our syndication, a lot of it as well, because we still controlling the deals and we understand the outcome. But now we open this to more people to invest along our side, to be our partners, so we can all grow together.
I love that part, Willie. So, I think as you were saying that not one platform can reach everybody. Right. I'm sure there are people like us. I know there are people like us. There are a lot of syndicators that we both love, that we both know, and they're all doing an amazing job. Because I guess asked the question, there's so many syndicators, is there a low barrier to entry? It's not about a barrier to entry. It's because there's over 4 trillion money stuck in 401ks, right? And to your point about there's a lot of people who need a wake-up call, right? In a gentler way. Where, but there is another opportunity. I'm not the one to propose leave everything, liquidate your entire 401k. That's up to you. I mean, to the listeners, but there is a way to exceed your investment returns if you go outside of 401k, or keep it within 401k or IRAs and still invest in syndications. You can still do that. There are ways to do that, and we'll do more episodes on doing that. But have an open mind towards investments that are outside of the stock market, because essentially what's happening with the stock market is you are a victim of market, right? You have no control. You think you have control. You think you can pull your money out. But most of the time when you're pulling your money out, the market is down, right? So it's never up. When you pull your money out, chances are market is not going to be up.
Yeah. Going back to my startup days and waiting to exercise my stock option and see it going lower and lower and lower.
Yeah. It
I had all
hurts.
the stock options, and every time I get it under the market, but by the time I need to exercise it, is the stock worth nothing.
Correct.
I never made any, money in the stock market. And the other caveat too, like, you don't need to wait until you're retired in your
Mhm.
401k or investing in the stock to be able to start selling and make profit.
Correct.
And yes, I know the market averaged 10-12% over time. And what I'm saying, I'm not saying every deal gonna make 5.6 your money, or gonna multiply, or gonna triple in 21 months. But what I'm saying is there is a lot of ways to diverse your portfolio, your investment. And also, you don't have to wait until you're 65 years old or
Mhm.
retired to start making cash flow. You don't have to wait for that.
Agreed.
You
Agreed.
can start now, and that can help you basically grow, get you more out of life, being able to expand your lifestyle, take that extra vacation, send the kids to private school, afford to send your kid to a good college and pay for her expense or his expense. That's definitely things that we enjoy right now, that I don't know if it was just only my job, what would we do, and how would we be able to do this?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Willie. This is a great story. We're going to switch gears here, right? So, first of all, great story. Thanks for sharing your insights. Always, you always add value to me. I always get inspired after talking to you. I'm going to go buy some apartments tomorrow. Uh, so, help us understand, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so our syndication company is called GrowAbility Equity, as one word, growabilityequity.com. So you can go to our website and subscribe to our investment club, so you can get our newsletter, our emails. We have a lot of material on our website, so you're welcome to get yourself educated and read more about, like, the syndication world, the apartment world, the commercial investment world, and get more from our website.
Love that, Willie. Approach everything from the education front. I love that. Well, you can find Willie and his team at GrowAbility Equity.
.com.
GrowAbilityEquity.com. If you didn't get a chance to note it down, do not worry. It'll be included in the show notes. Willie, let's switch gears here. So you have a lot of wisdom, right? I mean, life has not been easy on you, but you've kicked it very hard. So, which is amazing. If you were to give any insights to your 20-year-old self, going back in time, to make sure that they can migrate in life in more intentionally and more successfully, what would that be?
It would be not to be afraid to try different things. That would be the most important things. Like, life doesn't come in one color, in one way. There is so much to learn. School prepares you very well, but it's not enough. Read as many books as you can early on. Try to get yourself educated. And the most of it, we all love and learn different things and love different ways. So if you love the stock market and you want to learn as much as you want to learn about stock, and you want to invest in stock, please get yourself educated. Go ahead and invest the time, get some mentorship, try to educate early before you start investing your money. The problem, like I see, like a lot of people, stock market is not a gambling, and real estate is definitely not for everyone. But if you have a passion for something, go ahead and get education on it, and spend time and effort to learn it very well, and that should take care of everything else after that.
Awesome, Billy. Again, thank you. Could not agree more on that insight, right? Kind of like, stay open, stay curious, stay a student forever, and keep expanding your own mindset. We have limitless capability to absorb information and knowledge. You just got to look for it. And there are people who are willing to share it.
Absolutely.
It's you just got to ask. I think most of us sometimes don't ask because we don't want to look stupid. I would say, I think I would just add to that point is, be okay. Be okay being stupid. It's okay. That will not last for too long, right? So, Willie, let's take a broader perspective now, right? We talked about your story, your life's mission, sort of your inspiration to, if you were to go back several years in your life. Let's go forward, right? And let's take a broader perspective on humanity in general. What would your desire or wish for the humanity to migrate towards?
Peaceful word for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there is enough resources for everyone. So I think we all have to strive to succeed. So I think we need to be less relying on government and system to take care of us. And I think we all have to trust our capability, our interest, and make sure that we can provide for ourselves. Like if we go back to the basics and we all strive to take care of ourselves and our family and strive in the world, we're going to make the world a much better place one day.
Awesome. And on that high note, I want to thank you for being on this show. Really appreciate it. Once again, you can find Willie on growabilityequity.com. The link will be included in the show notes below. Thank you again for tuning in. This is your host, Saki Jain. Be well.
Thank you.
If you got value from this episode, you might consider sharing this content with a friend. But most importantly, be sure to take action on what you've learned. One way you can take the next step is to connect directly with Saket on an investor call. That link is waiting for you in the show notes below.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. Please consult your own advisors when making any investment decisions. Keep listening. We'll see you on the next episode.